Town Square Media Station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Tuesday edition of Game Night. Interesting sports evening last night. Talked about some of it yesterday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Hockey playoffs, NBA playoffs. Phillies, how about that win? Got a win in Atlanta. Zach Wheeler looking like the guy we saw last year. We'll get into all that and more coming up here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We are also going to get into the Flyers head coaching search, plus some perspective on the NHL playoffs. You know, Claude Giroux got eliminated last night, and I'm going to tell you guys in just a bit why I disagree with Pete Thompson about the situation with Claude Giroux. Because, you know, Pete Thompson described it as hindsight 2020. I tend to lean more about karma. I'll get into that in just a bit. Of course, you can always join the conversation as well. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. I'm going to get to the Phillies and the NBA playoffs first, though, because, you know, speaking of the Phillies, yesterday we saw something that was very obvious, very upfront in your face. And that was the Phillies winning 2 straight games and continuing to score runs. Ever since this Phillies team got Bryce Harper back, all of a sudden they're scoring runs again. The Phillies are averaging 5 runs per game in the 3 games with Harper back in the lineup. The previous 5 games without Harper, the Phillies offense averaged 1.6 runs per game, and in 2 of those games, they were completely shut out. I don't think it's a coincidence that this is happening. Look, I'm not saying that it's all on Harper being the lineup for this team to score. But what I am saying is that there's something to the fact that this team never got shut out in the month of May until Bryce Harper wasn't in the lineup. Think about what this team was doing scoring-wise before he left the lineup. They scored 8 runs, 12 runs, 9 runs, 4 runs, 4 runs, 9 runs. Then 1 run. Okay, that was a bad game. That was May 8th. Before that, Philly scored 3 runs, 7 runs. What's the pattern here? This lineup can score runs. And in recent 2 weeks, the Phillies pitching staff has done their job for the most part. They only allowed 3 runs. They had a shutout. They only allowed 2 runs. But they lost those games because the offense couldn't do their job. You know, this organization spent a lot of money bringing in Schwarber and Castellanos and these type of guys who are supposed to elevate this lineup from what it was last year to this year. And it's like they just can't do their job without Harper. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's a bad look. I think this organization can do better, and the Philly fans deserve better. Now, hopefully Harper doesn't have to miss any more time before the All-Star break. Because it's evident that without Bryce Harper in the lineup, this offense is pathetic. And it doesn't help that this stupid Phillies organization is obsessed with having Rhys Hoskins as the leadoff hitter. I wish I had a better understanding of why this organization is just such a topsy-turvy thing. I don't think it's Rhys Hoskins' fault that this team doesn't have a real leadoff hitter. It's not Hoskins' fault that his manager is asking him to hit leadoff on a team with only 2 legitimate contact hitters, not named Bryce Harper. Hoskins, I understand he can work a count, but he's a power hitter. He's a slugger. He's a guy who hits home runs and gets RBIs. He's not the guy that I need working the count. He's not the guy that I need up there doing that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of it at all. And when you break it down, the numbers are not favorable. As a leadoff hitter, Rhys Hoskins is a .229 batting average with a .329 on base percentage. The spots in the lineup that he hits the best are 5th and 6th. 298, 275. In those spots in the lineup for his career, he has a combined 10 home runs and 35 RBIs. He has 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, 10 walks, and 15 strikeouts as a leadoff hitter in 18 starts. The numbers are pretty clear. Rhys Hoskins should not be a leadoff hitter. But because this organization wants to keep lying to themselves and to you, the fans, we're stuck in this predicament. We were sold a bill of lies. We were told that this team was going to be able to hit their way out of their problems. But as soon as one player leaves the batting lineup, they can't do anything. 1.6 runs a game over a 5-game stretch without Harper. That's a joke. That's horrible. It's an insult. I don't get it. I just don't. I don't understand why this organization keeps selling us a bill of goods and expecting us to just accept it. It makes no sense to me. The pitching staff's doing their job. Eflin, Wheeler, Nola have actually pitched well recently. Kyle Gibson's kind of a coin flip, but he's doing his job. Ranger Suarez has kind of come back down to earth from what he did last year. But overall, this organization is not giving us the best team possible. Text board is open at 609-403-0973 on the text board. You also can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Don't forget, Flyers Insider Kevin Durso will join us coming up in 10 minutes with the latest on the Flyers head coaching search. The head coaching search that may either reward Chuck Fletcher or doom him out of the job at this rate. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973 is the text board. Texter says, why is Gene Segura not the leadoff hitter? He doesn't strike out. He's got speed. He's a pretty good base runner. Hits to all fields and just has just enough pop. I wish I had an answer for you. I'm sure there's some analytics guy who will tell me how Segura is better in the 6th hole than he is in the 1st hole. I mean, I don't need some analytics dude to sit here and tell me what my eyes see. My eyes tell me that Segura is a contact hitter. The texter said it. He's a guy who's much more better equipped for that role than anybody else is on this team right now. And if you want to use numbers, Segura, for his career, he has 408 games as a leadoff hitter. He's batting .295. That's 70 points more than Hoskins is as a leadoff hitter. Now, the on-base percentage isn't great, but I mean, I can't sit here and bend to the will of some analytics dude in my ear telling me what I should and shouldn't do with my life. The eye test tells me everything I need to know. Hoskins should not be a leadoff hitter. Decker's right. Segura should be the leadoff hitter. He's the only guy who's legitimately equipped for that job. You know, you can shuffle the rest of the lineup however you want. I don't even mind Bohm in the 2-hole. I think Bohm is not the problem at this point with the lineup. You know, I think Alec Bohm has done an incredible job at salvaging himself this year. I think he's done a great job at refinding himself, recalibrating himself, and putting himself in a better position to be successful. So I don't mind him being in the 2-hole. In fact, as a 2-hole hitter, Alec Bohm is hitting .319. Think about that. This young man has 27 games in the 2-hole, and he's batting .319, and he's got an on-base percentage of .340. It's not bad. Considering the way the rest of this team hits, it's not bad. You know, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's the best slot for Bohm, but he has shown that he is capable, at least, of being a functional hitter in the 2-hole. I think overall, Bohm has shown himself to be a solid hitter. I don't mind Bohm being in that slot. What I do mind is the fact that you're trying to sell me these Wolf tickets, this Forgazy that, oh, you know, Hoskins, he's the best option for the leadoff hitter. You know, he's a guy who worked the count. The analytics say, analytics, shut up. You went out and scored 1.6 runs per game with that Harper in the lineup. But you want to give me a bunch of horsemen or that Hoskins should be the leadoff hitter? Get out of here. There's part of me that hopes they lose tonight so they can get Hoskins out of the leadoff hole, because it seems like once Girardi loses a couple games here and there, he changes the lineup anyway. What I want them to do is lose tonight, then take Hoskins out of the leadoff hole, put Segura in the leadoff hole, and then them go on a 7-game winning streak just to shove it to these stupid analytics dorks. Listen, I love stats as much as the next guy. I'm called the sports geek for a reason. I don't want to see a guy who is a boomer bust hitter as a leadoff man. Keep your text coming. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. The other flip side of the coin is this. I'm watching the NBA playoffs last night, and it's becoming very obvious that the Boston Celtics are a Jekyll and Hyde team to me. It seems like whenever that team goes out there and plays an assertive, aggressive form of offense, they do a pretty good job. They win games. They control the pace of the game. They dictate the terms of engagement. But as soon as they give Miami an inch to bully them, they wilt. They give up on trying. I think that as far as I am concerned, I think that the Celtics, can they win this series? Sure. But they have to, and I mean they absolutely have to, dictate the terms of engagement. And the problem is, this series is going to go to Miami tomorrow night. Miami is going to win the game tomorrow night because that's the way this series is going. And Boston's going to be put in the hole to have to win 2 straight when no team in this series has won 2 straight. By the way, you can hear that game tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tonight, Warriors and Mavs. Mavericks will look to avoid being eliminated tonight. I just think the Mavs will find a way to win the game tonight. I don't know how. I just think they will. Not because I really have a lot of faith in them. I just think that the way the NBA is, the Warriors can't come back every time they go down and win. It's incredible to watch, but it's just not likely. But you got to give Luka and the Mavs a lot of credit. Luka and Jason Kidd have done a great job at putting this organization back on the map in a way that they weren't a few years ago, not even the least. All right, we're going to get into the Flyers. Coming up next, our head coaching search is underway. Who could and should be the next head coach? We'll ask Flyers Insider Kevin Durso next. All here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
The Western Conference Finals continue on ESPN Radio. The Golden State Warriors move to within one win of a sweep in their 6 NBA Finals in the last 8 seasons. Can Luka and the Mavs survive a must-win Game 4?
The three is an answer for Doncic, who's got 30.
Game 4 of the Warriors and Mavs. Coverage begins tonight at 8:30 Eastern.
Listen to the NBA Playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN.
It's the perfect season for a powerful business upgrade with Dell Technologies Summer Sale Event. Save up to 45% on secure PCs built for business with Windows 10 Pro. You'll also find great savings on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and other accessories to help boost productivity. Plus, enjoy free shipping on everything. Do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro. Call 877-ASK-DELL for a Dell Technologies advisor who can help you find the right tech. That's 877-ASK-DELL for business specials during Dell's Summer Sale Event.
Jamie's log. Progressive. The Harrington's backyard. Day 4, 2:18 a.m. I've been camping outside the Harrington house for 4 days now, proving that Progressive has 24/7 protection. Mr. Harrington says I don't need to do this since Progressive protects 24/7 is a pretty easy concept to grasp, but I'm going to stay and prove my point. Besides, there's a big tree branch over the roof, and I think it's planning something.
Progressive doesn't just offer a great price when you bundle home and auto. We offer round-the-clock protection, just not literally from Jamie. Coverage from Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers, and subject to policy terms. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
It's official. Summer is almost here. The sun is getting brighter, the days are getting longer, and your yard is ready for some love. Make sure your flower beds and bushes can handle the heat with special savings on Earth Grow Mulch. Keep the sun off your soil and water in the ground, plus add a fun pop of color that will last up to 12 months. Hurry in. Earth Grow Mulch, 5 bags for just $10. Feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Valid May 19th to 30th. In-store only. Color selection varies by store. Limit 75 per customer.
97.3 ESPN and TrackPhone Wireless want to share ideas with you for enjoying the great outdoors in South Jersey. Here are some popular outdoor ideas this spring. How about taking a walk on the Ocean City, Atlantic City, or Wildwood boardwalks? Or check out the perfect place to watch a sunset. How about the Point in Longport or the Cove in Brigantine? Brought to you by TrackPhone Wireless. Now you're in control.
Hey, y'all, this is your girl, Cheryl Underwood, and I want to tell you something. My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but those days are over. Now I feel great. That's because I increased my fiber intake with the Metamucil 2-week challenge, and I'm still hooked. I just took Metamucil every day for 14 days, and it's really that easy. Metamucil traps and removes the waste that weighs you down, so you feel lighter and more energetic. Now I never want to go back to that heavy feeling. Are you ready for the Metamucil 2-week challenge? For a coupon and daily support, sign up at Metamucil.com today.
Let's plan on having concessions over there.
Mike is remodeling the old family drive-in movie theater.
Go find Gavin. Tell him the sound team is here.
He'll need a new front-of-house cast and behind-the-scenes crew.
Hey, can we talk staffing real quick? I'm thinking at least 6 per shift.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our hiring platform instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
With GMF financing, approved credit excludes Corvette. May is the month to save at Bennett Chevrolet because we brought back our best offer ever. Right now, Bennett's paying a minimum $10,000 for any trade, whether it runs or not. Yes, bring us the oldest, rustiest, rotted rat trap you can drive, push, or tow to our lot, and Bennett will pay you a minimum $10,000 towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. Got a good trade? Well, think about this. If we're paying a minimum $10,000 for total junk, imagine how much more you'll get for a good quality trade. Looking for new? Great news. Bennett's not selling over factory sticker like the other dealers. And there's 0% available financing. And if you're stuck in a lease, we can get you out early. Any make, any model. And remember, Bennett will buy your vehicle even if you don't buy ours. Stop in for a quick quote. Never any pressure or obligation, because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid based on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Find new roads at Bennett Chevrolet, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Good news is the NHL playoffs have been entertaining. The bad news is the Flyers are not in the playoffs. And frankly, at this rate, I don't know if they're ever going to be a contender with the way the franchise has been going. Or maybe I'm just being very negative considering the fact that there's a part of me that's actually happy that the Florida Panthers got swept last night. Flyers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com is Kevin Durso. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. And he joins us right now to talk all about all these things and more right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I got to get into, first of all, I'll get this out of the way. I understand that there are people out there who are saying that hindsight is 2020, but there is a little part of me that looks at Giroux after last night and says, you could have gone to Colorado, but you chose to go to Florida. There's a part of me that looks at him and is like, you kind of made your own bet here, buddy.
Well, sure, a little bit. And look, we can't deny the fact that part of the process of getting to where Claude Giroux hoped to get to by getting traded, wherever he could get traded, was that if you pick Florida, you're going to have to pass through the defending two-time Stanley Cup champions at some point, and it's going to be before the Stanley Cup final as a result. So that to me is hindsight 2020, because yeah, sure, you could go back and make a different decision. Maybe you felt like Florida was better than Tampa. That's your own evaluation. So be it. I actually think that, this becomes the more fascinating part of this whole process for Claude Giroux now that this run is over, because certainly he had his own say on where he wanted to go when the trade happened, but now he really has his own say. I mean, this is where you really get to sit back and think about, you don't have a contract. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to play? And kind of who's a fit for you in terms of cap space too, and what you think you're worth and all that type of stuff. I don't doubt that Florida is going to try to find a way to make this work, but can they with the cap space? It's going to be tricky. They've got a lot of things to think about. And, he could try to go to, I kind of saw a running joke going around that the message in the handshake line to Claude Giroux from the Tampa Bay players was, hey, come here, we win,
Right.
So, but again, that's another team where you sit there and you ask yourself, well, how would they make that work cap wise? So he's got a lot to think about. And, certainly there are options on the table for him in several destinations. Obviously, Florida is probably going to look to try to retain him. He did have, you can't deny he had really good success, point production wise, and all of that type of stuff. And the team was great going into the playoffs. They finished the regular season on an absolute tear. And then in that first round series against Washington, they were falling behind a little bit. And I kind of got worried about that, their style here in that first round, because you don't want to chase the game that frequently in the playoffs. The teams are just too good to do that. And they kind of got their act together when game 4 hit, and they managed to tie that game late, won it in overtime. And then games 5 and 6, they took care of business, and you saw their big players really come out. None of that was there in the second round against Tampa Bay. They pretty much got schooled by Tampa Bay, and kind of just goes to show you how good that team is, how much that experience matters too, because most of these Florida guys haven't really played in a series like that. Not in the second round, not getting that far in the playoffs, not having to kind of deal with what happens once you play, once you play that six game first round series, the thing that comes next, how much more you have to give, and kind of what also happens when your top guys get shut down and the depth isn't there. So, for them, it's a learning experience. I'm sure a lot of the guys who are staples of that team will take it and maybe run with it. There's been plenty of times where a team has lost in the second round and then taken it and run with it the next year and finds a way. But, is Claude Giroux going to be part of that team? I don't know. It's going to be interesting for him.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the salary cap thing. I mean, I don't really know what Giroux thinks he's worth or what he's willing to take at this point in his career. I couldn't tell you based on anything I've heard or read or seen anywhere. I don't really know what Giroux wants. Like, is he the kind of guy that says, I'm from Canada, I'm going to go play in Canada now? Is he a guy that says, I just want to go to the highest bidder? Is he a guy that says, I want to stay on the East Coast? I have zero clue what this guy really wants. I feel like every time in Philadelphia he opened his mouth, he just didn't say a lot. Like, I feel like I learned more about him through the NHL Network version of Hard Knocks a few years ago, when I feel like I learned more about him in that 30-minute episodes that I learned in his entire career here in Philadelphia. So, Kevin, I have no idea what Giroux is even thinking. So who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and I think in part that has to do with once the trade happened, your focus is on the playoffs all of a sudden. He got out of this situation, went to the team that won the President's Trophy. You're thinking about the playoff run. Now he has time to kind of step back and think about that. I mean, if he's going to go into free agency and hit the market, you've got about a month and a half until that happens. So you've got time to think about what you may want to do. Certainly, you bring up go to Canada. He's from Ottawa. Maybe that's on the radar. It's certainly a rumor that's floated around multiple times over the last few weeks that once this season ends, if it doesn't work out with Florida, could that be the destination? Could he want to finish out his playing career up there? It's certainly possible, but he's got to figure out kind of to that degree, what does he want at this point? Now that you can take the focus off of playing in the playoffs, where do you want to go from here? Do you want to stick with the contender? Is it about winning? Is it about the Stanley Cup? Is it about going to play at home in Canada? Is it about whatever gives you the most money, like you said? Is it about kind of factoring in all of those things and factoring in your family and maybe staying on the East Coast because that's where everything has been for your entire career? We can't deny the fact that in Philadelphia, he came in as a 20-year-old kid and left as, at 34, 35 years old with a family, wife, kids, all that type of stuff. So he's factoring that in significantly for sure. But that's the things that I think he can sit down now and focus on as opposed to when these playoff series were happening.
Let's get over to the Flyers head coaching search because, Kevin, I don't even know if there's a right answer of who should be the head coach. Because, one, I'm not sure if the head coach fixes that much from this past year with 200 injuries that happened. And the other flip side of it is, okay, you bring in Trotz or Tortorella, okay, I don't think I can wrap my head around this idea that the head coach is changing what I saw on the ice this past year. To me, it feels more like this is the move that Chuck Fletcher needs to maybe, establish a culture change, maybe.
I think what it's really trying to do, if you're in Chuck Fletcher's shoes anyway, you're doing everything you can to save your job because you know that you need success immediately. And you're going to go out and try to probably hire the best head coach you can get your hands on. And certainly the comments in mid-season from Dave Scott, where you're talking about blank checks, money's not an object here when it comes to that. They will go ahead and they're spared no resource in getting their hands on the best coach possible. Now, of course, this is a two-way street. The best coach possible would have to want the situation as much as the Flyers want him. But, look, when it comes to somebody like Barry Trotz, for example, who as of a few weeks ago wasn't on the radar because everybody kind of, I think, assumed he was just going to stay in Long Island and be part of the New York Islanders going forward. That was kind of a shocking development. Well, when that happens, you definitely, and I wrote this, you have to kind of change course a little bit. You are doing organizational malpractice if you don't at least pick up the phone and call the guy. It's just, you can't get away with not calling him. So the fact that they've had conversations, that there's an interview scheduled for sometime this week, that all makes sense. Is he the right fit? I don't know if he's the right fit now, but I think that something that needs to be considered also is that you're trying to think long-term future here too. Is he the right fit 3 years from now when you think you are going to be more of a contender, certainly in their heads, maybe more than mine, when you think you're going to be more of a contender? Well, this is your opportunity to get that coach now. You're not going to have that opportunity 2-3 years down the line. So you have to go for it. You're kind of given no choice. So I'm not surprised that Trotz is on the radar. I'm not surprised that John Tortorella is on the radar because those guys tend to fit the description that we've heard that Elliot Friedman reported last week, the proven track record, accountability, gets guys to buy in right away, makes teams tougher to play against. They fit the bill, certainly. I've kind of said all along, and I this goes back to when Alain Vigneault was fired, and there were thoughts about what happens from here and how long is Mike Yeo the interim coach, and he ended up being the interim for the rest of the year, obviously. But it was pretty obvious as early as January that he wasn't going to be the coach beyond this season, even then. And I kind of have all along had the thought process, you need a coach that, to me anyway, and maybe this is not the case in 3 years, but for now maybe feels like a transitional coach. Somebody where the expectations don't go sky high immediately, and they kind of do if you hire a guy like Barry Trotz or if you hire a John Tortorella. You think you're going to get some immediate results, and I think you need to lean the other way. I think you need to lean more developmental side and think that way. I know that I was listening earlier when PT was on. David Quinn's name came up. I've kind of vouched for him a little bit, but I'm thinking the guy that they're really waiting for, and makes a lot of sense, and the timeline seems to mesh up here with what's going on in the playoffs right now. I think the guy they're waiting for is Jim Montgomery, and he's an assistant coach with St. Louis, and as soon as Wednesday night, his team could be out of the playoffs. And I wouldn't be shocked if that does happen, if St. Louis loses Game 5 and the series is over. I wouldn't be shocked if Thursday or Friday we're hearing something about how he's got an interview, because I really think they're holding out for him a little bit. And I think it would be that's probably a really decent fit, all things considered, because you've got a guy who has not a very long track record as an NHL head coach, but did prove to be a pretty solid NHL head coach until the issues that he had where he was forced to step away from the head coaching spot. He was coaching in Dallas at the time, and that team was on their way to something. And actually, once he left, and Rick Bowness took over, who also just recently left that position. When Rick Bowness took over that year, that was the year that everything shut down in March, and they came back in the bubble and all of a sudden went on a run, and they're playing in the Stanley Cup final later that year. So the team had talent, and they were playing at a high level. And now you kind of get a situation where, one of the things that's kind of come up a lot is how attractive is this job, to somebody like a Barry Trotz or a John Tortorella. Is it really even that attractive when you've got Winnipeg or Detroit, or even especially after the two newest openings in Dallas or Vegas? But, for a guy like Jim Montgomery, who just wants to get back in the game, just wants an opportunity kind of at the redemption tour, I think any coaching opportunity would be attractive to him, as opposed to a guy who maybe like Barry Trotz is possibly looking for the next chance to win another Stanley Cup and then head to the management office or something like that. Jim Montgomery probably wants to get that head coaching job back. And if he wants to get a head coaching job back, I don't think location is as huge an issue for him as it is for other coaches who are just looking to go to where maybe the best chance to win is. So I think that makes him maybe a pretty good fit for this team, because certainly he's coached at the college level, so he can get through to younger players. He definitely had that accountability and buy-in when he was with Dallas, even though it was a small sample. And he made Dallas a tougher team to play against in that time, no question about it. So I think that there's a fit there, and I would not be surprised if the longer this goes on, the more that it sounds like he becomes another top candidate alongside of guys like Trotz and Tortorella.
Flyers Insider Kevin Durso joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso, all of his Flyers and NHL coverage over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Before we get to the rest of the playoff stuff, just to follow up on Montgomery, he's a former Flyers player, right? Like, he played with them a hot minute, right?
Yeah, he was mostly a journeyman player in his playing career, but he does have a unique tie to Flyers history, and it's, good answer for a trivia question down the line if it ever comes up, and it certainly will if he gets this job, because back in his playing days, he is the guy who coined the term that we all know now as the Flyers top line in 1997, the Legion of Doom. He's the first one who actually said it, and that was the nickname that everybody ran with and that stuck. And if you're bringing up the Legion of Doom, that's Jim Montgomery's work.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess if nothing else, he has a future in PR then. So, listen, I'm not trying to be dismissive of the guy. I'm trying to reconcile, like part of what it sounded like you were saying is that, Trotz and Tortorella come in, they talk to Chuck Fletcher, and it almost sounds like you're suggesting that both of those guys could potentially be like, thanks, but no thanks, basically, to this job, which I don't know if that's right or wrong, because, like, I know the Vegas job is open. Like, to me, the Vegas job is one of the most appealing jobs in all the NHL. Like, if I'm Trotz or Tortorella, I want the Vegas job over the Flyers job. So it almost sounds like you're saying that, like, Montgomery's the guy by default, not by, best option.
Not necessarily. I
Okay.
think the reason behind that is also, look, if you can, money's going to talk. If you can throw enough money at Barry Trotz, I'm sure he's listening to you. But, my take on this is, and I don't know what they're thinking per se. Like, that's kind of where I'm confused with it too, is because they're going to interview those top candidates that you're hearing about, the Trotzes and Tortorellas of the world. And, certainly, and this is kind of where I go, and this is the difference between Trotz and Tortorella for me. Trotz is new to the market now, so when he enters the market, you kind of have to pivot your thinking. The big fish just entered the pond. You've got to go ahead and entertain that idea.
Right.
Tortorella's been available for all of last season, so even when you fired Alain Vigneault, you had the opportunity to pick up the phone and call him if you wanted to and see, and granted, at the time, maybe he's not interested. Maybe he's sitting there in December going, hey, listen, I got a good gig with ESPN right now. I'm enjoying myself. I'm not interested in coaching right now. Talk to me in the offseason. And that could be why they wait. Certainly, it's more where I'm coming from with it than where they're coming from with it when I say things like that, because I don't think that the team right now in their current state needs a guy who we can all go and look up the numbers and say, look at where that guy ranks in coaching wins in his career. Both guys, if we're talking Trotz and Tortorella specifically, both guys have won a Stanley Cup in their history. Tortorella hasn't won a cup, obviously, in a long time. He's going back to the original Cup win for the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2004, and Trotz is more recent. And certainly the other thing that Trotz has that keeps coming up is Trotz coached with the Islanders for the last 4 years, and before that 4 years with the Washington Capitals. So he's a guy who knows the division really well. And you could say the same for Tortorella to an extent, because Tortorella coached the Columbus Blue Jackets and the New York Rangers, and he does know the division. And certainly, if nothing else, one of the attractive things about both of those guys when it comes to their mindset is, Tortorella's on TV actively right now as an analyst. Trotz is not, obviously, but both guys have been around the game long enough that they certainly know the history of the franchise and kind of probably can recognize that it's not in a good state right now, even from afar. Trotz is busy with everything else while he's coaching the Islanders, but I'm sure he can recognize the downfall of the team that he beat in the playoffs 2 years ago in the second round and where they are right now. And Tortorella's been able to watch it a little closely from afar because of the fact that he's an analyst instead of coaching. So I'm sure they're aware of it, and they've been around the league long enough to know what this franchise was in the past and trying to repair that and knowing what it could take and trying to demand something of these players and the organization as a whole. So that makes it an interesting decision because, I don't want to sit here and say that if they hire Barry Trotz or if they hire John Tortorella, it means instant turnaround. That's on everything. Everything's got to fall into place. And certainly from the end of season press conference, talking about Sean Couturier coming back healthy and Ryan Ellis coming back healthy. That's great if they do. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but that's a lot of hoping, and hope is not a plan to me. So you don't have a game plan for how you're improving your team on the ice other than that you're saying young guys come back, hopefully they have a good summer, and hopefully these injured guys come back healthy. Well, that doesn't really solve anything in terms of getting better. Now, they could set aside some money and say, we're going to go out and try to compete for one of these free agents. We all know who they are by now. Johnny Gaudreau is going to be a free agent. Nazem Kadri is a free agent on the market who could be on the market after the playoffs and all that stuff like that. And obviously, they are two guys who made a lot of noise in the regular season and continue to do so in the playoffs. So, of course, they're going to generate some buzz. But are any of them going to want to come here? Are any of them going to be able to transform this team by themselves? I don't see it. And as such, you need a lot more buy-in and you need a lot more than just hope to repair this team on the ice, and a lot more than a future Hall of Fame head coach like a Barry Trotz would be to patch it all up. So they've got a lot of work to do beyond just this coaching hire. But certainly I think there's an element, going back to what I said at the beginning, that for Chuck Fletcher, that he's got to get this right, and he knows it. And he's got to get immediate results. And I don't know that he's going to get immediate results, even if he hires the best coach. Mike Yeo famously kind of said at the end of the season during some of these games, you could have Scotty Bowman behind the bench and it wasn't going to win a game. That's the state of the roster right now.
Right.
And certainly at the end of the year, they were playing even with more injuries than they had at the start of the year. But it doesn't mean it's going to improve just because a few guys come back healthy.
I'm going to put the Gaudreau thing on the back burner for a moment. I do have a couple other playoff questions I want to ask you about.
Okay.
So now that Tampa has advanced, okay, Carolina, New York plays tonight. I believe they dropped the puck in about 25 minutes from now. Which of those teams is better equipped to potentially beat Tampa? Because right now, Tampa looks like a juggernaut that's going to just roll right through. So between Carolina and the New York Rangers, is either of them better equipped to give Tampa the fight?
I'd say Carolina's probably the better team equipped to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning and give them a fight. The New York Rangers have one really interesting element that goes into that would make them equipped to do it. And I think they're equipped with a goaltender who can go toe-to-toe with Andrei Vasilevsky. That's how good Igor Shesterkin has been this year.
Right.
But the rest of the team, and especially if you get into one of these track meets with a team like that, I don't even know if Shesterkin is helping you get past that team. So I think that from a team standpoint, Carolina is probably the better equipped team. And, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, that team is the model of what you should be in the NHL right now. The Tampa Bay Lightning have done it right from start to finish. And, it's really easy to look at them. And I said this last year when they won the Cup. It's easy to look at them and talk about how they've got the best of just about everything. They've got the best goalie in the world. They've got one of the best defensemen in the world. They've got 3 superstar forwards. And they have, at this point, we got to start lumping in the coach as well. They've got probably the best coach in the world, too. And the interesting part about all of them, the 6 people that I'm going to bring up, so Andrei Vasilevsky in goal, Victor Hedman on defense, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov up front, and John Cooper on the bench. They are all homegrown products of this team. The 5 players are all draft picks, and John Cooper came up through their farm system coaching in the AHL before getting the call to the NHL. And they have built this thing exactly the right way from the ground up, from being a team that needed to build it that way to becoming, probably the closest thing we've seen to a true dynasty, and where we have no choice but to marvel at their accomplishments. And at the same time, it kind of becomes, it's one of these things becomes infuriating all at the same time, because people love to hate teams like this. People love to hate Tom Brady and the Patriots. People love to hate Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls when they're going through and winning all the time, right? Like, you're going to get people who love to hate them because they just win, but they have done it absolutely the right way. And I don't know if we're ever going to see a team that puts together a stretch quite like they have. 6 conference final appearances now in 8 years. 2 of those years, they got to within 1 game of the Stanley Cup final. And another year they made the Stanley Cup final. And now you're on the 6th one, to be determined. Obviously, the other 2 were cup wins. So you see how close they've come to winning that many cups. And it's not, we can go back and look at teams that we can say came close to dynasty level, maybe Steve Yzerman era Detroit Red Wings or, teams like that. I don't know. We haven't seen a team win 3 Stanley Cups in a row since the early 80s in the New York Islanders. And we're getting very close to possibly seeing that here. And it would be pretty historic if that happened. So, best of luck to the 2 teams that are still left playing and still have, this is a big deal if the Rangers win this game tonight, because if you have to guarantee another game, then, Tampa's just sitting at home right now, waiting and resting and just won a series against the President's Trophy winners without Braden Point at all, which, just goes to show you how good they are. Their depth is incredible. Look at the guys scoring goals for Tampa Bay. Corey Perry's still scoring goals. Nick Paul, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is scoring for them. Pat Maroon had the game winner the other night. And, of course, Ross Colton, who had the cup clincher the year before and then scores a goal with 4 seconds left in game 2 that seals the deal for that game. And for me, that sealed the series. I thought the series was over right then and there. So they're an incredible team, and best of luck to whoever gets to play them in the conference finals, because they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, Ross Colton, Jersey guy.
Yes, he is.
Got that goal. 2 more things before I let you go. One, I understand everyone thinks the Avalanche are a shoo-in for the Cup, and maybe I'm just delusional, but watching this Oilers-Flames series, I'm convinced the winner of this series is going to the Cup. I really am. I just think that both of these teams, they have something I've never seen Colorado do. They're just insane. It's like, I feel like both teams have dudes who are psychos. To me, I said this a couple weeks ago on Billy Schweim's show, I've never seen a team win a cup that didn't have a couple nut jobs. I don't know who the nut job is on Colorado's team. Yeah, they're going to go to the conference finals, but they were out in the second round for 3 straight years? So, to me, the Oilers got Evander Kane, the Flames got Kachuk. Who's the crazy person on Colorado who's going to do something insane that's going to rile up the crowd and rile up his team?
For sure. And the funny thing too is because that's been the most entertaining series, this Edmonton-Calgary series. Battle of Alberta. We were watching as
I'm
many
losing
people...
sleep over this thing.
Oh,
Kevin.
sure, absolutely. And as watching this Game 7 that Calgary had to play against Dallas, because it was the last Game 7 of the bunch, and there were 5 of them. I'm not sitting here with active rooting interest in any team that's left. But we were all kind of, as hockey fans, rooting for a Battle of Alberta second round because we knew what kind of series we were going to get in terms of physicality, in terms of intensity, and it's delivered just incredibly to this point. And this is an interesting point in the series too because Edmonton's up 2-1, and you got to start thinking about what happens if Calgary falls behind 3-1 in that series. The way that Colorado's going to head 3-1. I think that this is a very important game for Calgary because of the fact that, if you can get it back to 2-2, obviously you're back in the series at that point. But I think that maybe the advantage for the Oilers would be, especially if you're going to go on to play a team like Colorado, is the last thing you need is to prolong the series any further than it can go and wear each other out, because that's what's going to happen. If Colorado finishes this series off in 5 games like they can, and the Edmonton-Calgary series goes at least 6, possibly 7. I'd love to see whatever either of those teams has left for Colorado at that point, because I think you're going to be worn out and pretty much done for at that point. But certainly those two teams have entertaining characters across the board. I mean, you can also throw in Tkachuk's definitely one of the main guys for Calgary. I would also throw in a Milan Lucic type of guy because he's kind of a bit of a get under the skin kind of guy too, especially in his role. And
he's
they've got guys
agitator,
yeah. So they got guys like that too. And it's just incredible. But the thing I was going to bring up too is because the other night, they've got guys like that are those kind of players, and you called them psychos. They got guys who also, both teams do have guys who are just incredible skill guys. And I tweeted out during the game the other night that Evander Kane's hat trick goal was just one that you knew was going to happen. It's predictable because, come on, it's Connor McDavid getting a step 2-on-1, and he's going to make the pass. You just know he's going to make the pass because he's Connor McDavid. And that's the beauty of it. Like, I think that one of the things that would make this, would make this conference final incredible either way, which is why this Battle of Alberta is so good, is, Tkachuk is a good skill guy as much as he is that agitator kind of guy. And Johnny Gaudreau has shown great skill in this series, in this playoff so far. And you compile it with McDavid and Draisaitl on the other end. And Draisaitl's not even 100% right now, and he's playing out of his mind. And can you imagine putting one of those two teams in a conference final against Colorado and telling them go toe-to-toe with Colorado's big guns too? Like, it's going to be an incredible series, and probably will steal the show of what's left at that point, because with Tampa going to the next round, it's going to take everything that the team who's playing against them has got to move on. So I'm going to be really curious to see who comes out of this series. Definitely curious about whether or not Edmonton can really get the upper hand, because that would probably be about it. I think that's as far as Connor McDavid has gone in the playoffs. So I would really be interested to see if Connor McDavid gets to his first conference final here and is getting closer to that step where he's in a Stanley Cup final. Because I think we're all waiting for, it's very much the same equation with Austin Matthews. And obviously we all know what's going on with Toronto and how long it's been for them. But everybody's waiting for those guys to finally make it the way that it was when Ovechkin finally made it, or the times that Crosby made it. I think we're waiting for McDavid's turn. And we can say the same for Nathan McKinnon too. We're kind of waiting for McKinnon. Somebody's going to get, maybe two teams like that are going to get to the conference finals for the first time. And it's going to be exciting if it happens.
I'll tell you right now, if the Oilers do get to the Stanley Cup finals, the acquisition of the year is Evander Kane joining Edmonton. It has to be. All right. I only got a couple minutes before I let you go. Gaudreau. Everyone wants him in a Flyers uniform. My working theory is this. Could he be a Flyer next year? Sure. I don't see why that would be the craziest idea. Could he potentially take a deal that's not, the maximum market value? Sure. I could totally see that. I just don't think Johnny Gaudreau fixes every problem for this team. So, I could totally see him being in a Flyers uniform and everyone being excited, but I don't think Johnny Gaudreau, if he was on the Flyers this year, makes them win that many more games.
So we're back to the conference final conversation for a second, because let's put Calgary in the conference final instead of Edmonton for a second. If you get that far, I think you've got a lot of thinking to do, because if you're Johnny Gaudreau, because now you've got to think about the money that goes into it, because Calgary's got a really big situation this offseason, because it's not just Johnny Gaudreau, it's Matthew Tkachuk as well. They're both free agents. Tkachuk, favorably for them, is a restricted free agent, so they have the rights and they get to basically, he could be one of those candidates for an offer sheet type thing, but they would be able to match it, and that could really, hinder them in what they do with Gaudreau. So it probably makes Gaudreau the more likely of the two to leave in the long run.
Okay.
But certainly I would say that Calgary would want to find a way to make that work if they can. And I think in Gaudreau's case, money's going to have to become a big part of the discussion and consideration if you want to make it work in Calgary. And if you get far enough and think you're one step away, and a lot of things have gone right this year, they were not a good team last year. And the coaching change, having Darryl Sutter for the full year, has helped. And they've taken steps and they're getting closer to what they want to be. And you got to decide if you want to be that or not. Certainly there's going to be an attractive nature to the Flyers because it's local. You can't change that. That's the hometown team. It's going to the opportunity will present itself, because I can't see him making it to market and not getting an offer from the Flyers. Whether he entertains it that much or not, that remains to be seen. But if he hits the market, I guarantee the Flyers are going to be in on him, because it's the local guy. You can't deny the fact that the guy also played at Boston College, and how many Boston College guys are on this roster,
right,
or Boston area guys that he's going to know that were former teammates and played with him and just know the whole deal. So he'll get an offer. What I'm curious about right now when it comes to him, specifically if we're talking the Flyers, first and foremost is how do they make that work if they were to even extend an offer? Because you got to consider, there's a lot to consider cap-wise. If that's the big piece that you're going to go out and try to get, and then where do you get the money from? Because I don't even think they have enough money to sign him straight up without doing something else. And I don't mean simply, if James Van Riemsdyk gets bought out, then they save some money. It's not that simple. They're going to have to do something else on top of that to probably make this work. Gaudreau is going to he's already making over $6 million now. He's going to, after having a career year, make upwards of 8.5, 9, pushing $10 million possibly. So you've got to think about that money when you go in there, especially if that's the type of player you want. I'm with you. I don't know how much he improves them on his own. I think that, a lot of his points this year, this was an incredible year for him because of the fact that more of his points came at even strength than anything. He had an incredible even strength year. He can help the Flyers power play, no question about it, but he didn't exactly produce at the highest level on Calgary's power play. So I don't think it takes them to the next level power play wise. He's not going to play shorthanded time. He can help you at even strength, but he's not the tallest guy or the strongest guy. So if you're looking for that defensive toughness, tough to play against kind of thing, you got a guy who has all of the other elements that this team needs: speed, skill. I've watched him during this playoff create opportunities and make a move that you're sitting here with your jaw on the floor. He's doing, I don't want to call it McDavid level stuff because McDavid's on a whole nother planet, but his version of McDavid level stuff, and he's toe dragging guys and he's making moves that, I don't know if anybody on the Flyers was making moves like that. Maybe hold for a couple by Joel Farabee, but not many others are making those moves. So he definitely brings that element, and that would be favorable for the team, but you don't want to be pushed around either. And there are nights where I'm sure he's going to get silenced because he's the big dog at that point. He's the big player that everybody knows is the point producer. And if you just key on him for the game, maybe you shut him down, you shut the Flyers down, and there's your 2 points as the opposition. So I don't know if it solves all the problems. To me, he's the type of player that you wish was on the market, maybe 3-4 years from now. And then you think about where you are, and maybe if you're closer, that's when you attack. But I don't get the sense that they're going to shy away from that either. They're open for business right now.
Yeah.
And I think that right or wrong, for better or worse at this point, they're going to go for it the way that they think that they should. And we'll see how it turns out, but I'm not exactly setting the bar very high for what I think they can be or for where I think that their hope is going to get them.
Yeah. And also right or wrong, they need to put butts in the seats. And I could totally see them sacrificing certain things to make sure they get those butts in the seats, because this was the worst attendance year, according to my research, since the 1980s for the Philadelphia Flyers. So, and from what I can read, the attendance figures only go back to about 1980. So where I found them. So, it's the Flyers got a lot of problems to figure out. But to figure it all out is Kevin Durso, our Flyers Insider. Check out all of his work over at 97.3 ESPN.com, at Kevin_Durso on Twitter for your Flyers and NHL coverage. Kevin, appreciate the time today. I always enjoy talking some hockey with you, and I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. We're wrapping up the show here. Don't forget tonight, Western Conference Finals, Warriors, Mavericks, right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Tomorrow night, Celtics, Warriors, here on 97.3 ESPN FM. I'm Josh Hennig, at Josh Hennig on Twitter. Have a great night, everybody. Catch you tomorrow.
The Eastern Conference Finals continue on ESPN Radio.
Oh, that was absolutely ridiculous.
After 4 games, the Celtics and Heat are locked up at 2 games each. Now the series heads back to Miami for a pivotal Game 5.
We're not making excuses. They outplayed us. Outside of these crazy runs, you have 2 really competitive teams.
Game 5 of the Celtics and Heat. Coverage begins tomorrow at 8 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Listen to the NBA Playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN.
It's beginning to feel a lot like summer, and the